Blessings, a community of spouses. Listen, Coach T here with you this morning, and I want to share a word with you. Today won't just be a word. Today will be more like coach teaching. This is a free session that I am giving to my marital couples on today, especially for the ones who are standing in the gap for marriage restoration. And so, because it is resurrection weekend, and I am believing God to resurrect some marriages and bring marital homes back into its right place. I want to give a free session today. And sometimes that requires more than just giving you some encouragement, warfaring with you, praying with you, but it actually requires some basic principles, some basic teaching, and I want to share those things with you. I'm going to show you guys, put together, I don't know if you can see it. I have put together a chart here, just to kind of make sure that I didn't miss anything and make sure that I'm giving you my best stuff. I'm giving you my good stuff. I'm giving you stuff that I had to go through and learn through experience, through sweat and tears, through pain, through all kinds of hell. And you are getting it today for free. So this is my gift to my spouses on today. All right. So it is Resurrection Weekend. And I want to be intentional about what I share with you today. Marriage restoration can be just as hard as standing for your marital covenant. Marriage restoration can be just as hard. The reason being is because the enemy already don't want you to be married. And so for you to be talking about, we finna bring this marriage back to a restored place, he is going to fight you. He is going to fight you. And this is just me being completely honest. I'm being completely transparent today. Some of the information I share with you, you may not like, but I am giving it to you raw today. I'm giving it to you raw. And so I want to bring this Bible verse to your attention. This message today may not be for everyone, but I want to just put that out there. But even if you're not having marital issues or marital problems, and that is a good thing, I want to just bring to your attention that every person go through a season of hardship. Every person go through a season of hardship. And the reason you go through a season of hardship is because of this Bible verse right here in John 16:33. And I'm going to read the Amplified verse, which says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace. In the world you will have tribulations and distress and suffering. But be courageous, be confident, be undaunted, be filled with joy. I have overcome the world. My conquest is accomplished, my victory abiding. The reason that you will have a hardship moment in your marital covenant is because God has told us in his word that you will go through a day of trial. You will go through a season of trials and tribulation, but you can overcome it. You can overcome it. So I just want to put that out there. For the ones who may say this may not be for them at this moment, at this time, this is still some good teaching that you can take with you. I consider myself as a foundational teacher of the Marital Covenant. So I like to get a hold of the couples in the beginning, especially my premarital. That's why I push premarital counseling, premarital coaching like I do, because I feel like if we get it in the beginning, if you are aware of things before you go into the marital covenant, you can not necessarily avoid hardship seasons, but you will be aware of it and you know how to deal with it and handle it in a different way. And so that is one of the things I just wanted to put out there. So today, and listen, my allergies are horrible. Excuse me for rubbing my eyes and itching my eyes and all that kind of stuff. So today we're going to talk about resurrecting the marriage covenant. And I just want to share with you some basic things that you can do as you are preparing for your marriage restoration. All right. Your marriage will be restored if you follow the counsel of the Lord. And I'm just going to kind of go by step, just kind of go through it. I'm going to give you some truths. I'm going to give you your opponents. I'm going to give you what you should do. I'm going to give you some steps. Just kind of go through it. So this is something that you really could, like, in a sense, take notes with, kind of write some things down, listen to over and over again, just to kind of know how you should be prepared, what you should look forward to as you prepare for your resurrected marriage, because we're believing that for you today. Your marriage will be restored if you follow the counsel of the Lord. Now, the steps that I'm sharing with you are Coach T steps. The steps that I'm sharing with you is Coach T experience. The things that I am sharing with you is what I went through myself. I cannot teach you or share with you anything that I have not myself went through or had to go through. So when I share something with you, I'm very authentic and transparent about what I am sharing. My language is transparency. I can't be anybody else but Coach T. So I just want to put that out there. Your marriage will be restored if you follow the counsel of the Lord. That's first. Second, your marriage will be restored if your faith is in God and not in your spouse or yourself. Your marriage will be restored. Your marriage will be restored if your focus is on the promises of God. If your focus is on the promises of God. Your marriage will be restored if you allow God to fix you. If you allow God to fix you, if you allow God the opportunity to change you and see the outcome and see the results being perfect. All right. So I just want to share those four F's with you. Those 4 F's with you. Your marriage will be restored if you follow the counsel of the Lord. Your marriage will be restored if your faith is in God and not yourself or your spouse. Your marriage will be restored if your focus is on the promises of God. Your marriage will be restored if you allow God to fix you, to change you. All right. Now, those are just the basic things that you can do for your marriage to be restored. However, you're going to run into opponents. You're going to have opponents in everything in life. And so you need to be aware of what your marital restoration opponents are. And so I want to share with you just some of the things that I have experienced. There's plenty more, and I probably didn't write all of them down, but this is a few to kind of get you started and kind of give you a heads up. You will have in your marriage restoration false starts. And what a false start simply is your spouse come home and it seems like, you guys are going down this path. Things are going forward. It's looking like, we're going into this forward direction. Things are going back, to a normal state. Like, it seems like old times, this and then the other. And then all of a sudden, your spouse will be like, I gotta go. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving again. All right. You will experience false starts in your marital restoration. All right. Second thing, double minus can take place. This is part of your opponents. Double minus take place sometimes in you, and it can also take place most of the time in the spouse that's returning back home. Double minus. This is why it is so important. It is so clear that you first make sure that you hear from God. Listen, spouses, if you are trying to do marriage restoration in your own strength, if you're trying to do marriage restoration by yourself, then I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. You have to know that you heard from God. You have to get his instructions. You have to get whatever Bible verse that you are standing on and stand on that. You have to know for a fact that God has given you the go. God has given you the okay. God has said this is what you're supposed to do concerning your marital covenant. Because false starts will take place. Double minus will take place. But even with those things taking place, you still focus on the promise of God. You make sure that you're following the counsel of the Lord. When I say following the counsel of the Lord, I didn't say people. I didn't say your pastor. I didn't say your friend. I didn't say your mother's, hand-me-down wisdom. I said the counsel of the Lord. Another opponent in the marriage restoration can be the environment and surroundings. That could be at your home. That can be at a place where the spouse has been used to going to or used to being around. That could be, old, hangout spots or whatever. These things are opponents, opponents in your marriage restoration. It is important that you continue to cover your spouse. From the time your spouse places foot in the door coming back home, you need to be in the presence of the Lord continuously. That's your stance. Marriage restoration is the stance of being in the presence of the Lord, period. All right. Another appointed will be the strange woman or man, depending if it's your husband or wife. The strange woman or man will get a sniff that your spouse have returned back to their marital covenant. They will get that because the enemy will alarm them. The enemy will let them know that, hey, they back at the house. We need to get something going on. We need to send a text message. We need to get a phone call going. We need to get them back to, they may hear a song. They may pass by a place. They may go to a certain spot that remind them of that old person. You spouses have to make sure that you are grounded in the word of God. I'm going to emphasize that continuously today. You do not move from God's word. You do not move from God's promises. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is when your spouse returns back home, we get into the comfortable place. Oh, we're going back to old times, or we're going to do things that we used to do. That is not the correct way. All right. Outside influencers will come to try to interrupt your marriage restoration. That's people at the job. That is people that your spouse have been receiving counsel from. That is people that your spouse have come in contact with over the time being that they was not home. Outside influences will try to come and interrupt marriage restoration. All right. Strong wills and not surrendering. Sometimes your spouse may have come home on, we're going to say parole, right? Sometimes your spouse may have come home based off of the fear of God, something God may have put in them to make them come back home. All right. Sometimes your spouse may have come back home due to a injury. Maybe they became ill or something happened to them. Sometimes your spouse may have come home like the prodigal. They come to themselves. They like, this is what I want to do. And sometimes doing that, they may not have come to a complete place of surrenderance. And so if your spouse have not completely surrendered, this can be a problem for the restoration of your marriage covenant. Relapses. This is a biggie for the spouses who have had problems in the past or have had problems dealing with any type of substance abuse. Relapse will take place in the marital restoration. As much as you pray for that spouse and you put oil on that spouse and you take that spouse to church with you and you do all those things, relapse will occur in the marital covenant. And you say, the question becomes, what do you do? What do you do? You continue to stay in the presence of the Lord, because it's in the presence of the Lord that you will get the instructions on how to handle it. All right. Family members and friends, this is a biggie. This will be an interruption in your marital restoration. And the reason being is everybody is not for your marital covenant. Even the ones who say, hey, yeah, I'm happy for you. They are not. They are lying. Okay? Family members and friends, outsiders, can be an interruption to your marital covenant. This walk with you, your spouse, and God is fierce, spouses. It is fierce. It is fierce. And it's very, very important that you stay in the alignment with God. All right. Routine and generational curses can be a hindrance to your marital restoration. Like I said, if they come back and you guys go back to life as usual, you go back to business as usual, you go back to conversations as usual, you go back to doing the same things as usual, this can be a problem in the marital covenant. Generational curses, just like you did it in your stand, like you continue to, call those things out and speak against those curses and break those chains. You have to continue to do this even when your spouse return. You have to understand Your spouse has been on the outside of the marital home, and they have been exposed to many, many, many things, many, many things. So you're fighting and you're coming against all type of evil. You're coming against all type of things. Now, sometimes miraculous happen, but even when the miraculous happen, you have to maintain your marriage restoration. You have to maintain it. You have to maintain it. All right. Not being mentally, physically, spiritually prepared when your spouse return. This is one of the things I emphasize, especially to my spouses who are pursuing the non-compliant spouse. This is one of the things I just make sure I drive this down their throats and make sure that they get it. You have to make sure that you are well before your spouse get there. A lot of times when we're standing for our spouses and we praying and we standing and we praying and we standing, we waiting for them to come, we're not paying any attention to ourselves. This is where self-care comes in. This is where it's very, very important for the spouse at home to remain in a place of, mentally well, physically well, spiritually well, sane, whole, making sure that you are in the right place, making sure that you are good when your spouse come back, because you are going to still be in a battle even when your spouse come home. You're going to still be in a battle even when your spouse shows up at the front door. So you have to make sure that you and God are on the same page. You have gotten your instructions. You are fully filled with the Spirit. You know exactly what God wants you to do. Listen, you have to be humble. You have to be mature. And I talk about that in my premarital classes. I give, some of the spouses 8 things that, certain things you have to have. You have to have agape love. All right. One of the other things I put on here is about, unforgiveness. Unforgiveness cannot be part of your vocabulary. It just cannot be so, because that says that you're not ready. You're not ready to receive your spouse back. So you have to make sure that you get away from unforgiveness. All right. You have to be real. You have to be well. Old habits and ways, can be a hindrance to the marital covenant. Like I said, that kind of go along with routine. You kind of like, doing some of the same things. A lot of times I hear spouses be like, I just be wanting to talk to my spouse and ask questions and what you was doing out there. Listen, let me tell you this. You don't want to know everything your spouse was doing on the outside. Some of that stuff you don't want to know the answers to. If God has not placed that in your spirit, or if God has not put your spouse in a position to come out and share those things with you freely, don't just be going up to them, asking them, so what you was doing? So who you was with? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? You are opening up doors for the enemy to grasp a foothold back into your marital covenant. One thing you do not want to do, spouses, is bring up the lifestyle that your spouse was living on the outside. You don't want to do that. You don't want to know about that stuff. You don't want to be compared to what was going on and who they was sleeping with and what they was doing and how they was doing it. No, you don't want to know that. A lot of people think they want to know, but the truth be told, you don't want to know, because what that does is leave a mark. It leaves a memory in your mind. I was that person. I went to my spouse's phone, and so some of the stuff I see in there, it was like, oh my God. And so now that's a memory that stamps in my mind. And I have to constantly renew my mind. I have to constantly remove those strongholds. I have to get that stuff out of my head. So you do not want to know. If that is not something that God placed into your spirit for your spouse to do, or make a door opener for that to come out, don't try to pursue that. Don't try to pursue that. Your goal, your stance in the marriage restoration is to stay in the presence of God and to follow the instructions of God. All right. Rebellions and witchcraft. Listen, don't think for a moment that these things just go away. Your spouse can get back on their job. Your spouse can be outside with other people. Anything can take place. Don't think that, I can finally breathe. I'm finally comfortable. It's finally okay. No. Marriage restoration, the resurrection of your marriage covenant, is one of the most fragile areas of marriage. It's one of the most fragile areas. I know a lot of times people think the standing is hard. I know a lot of times people think, adultery is hard. And I'm not saying those things are not hard. But the marriage restoration is, I think the man Keon Henderson, I was reading his book, and when he said the word he used, and I like the word he used, he said mean time. Marriage restoration is your mean time. That means in order for us to get from this spot to the next, because it is a next after this, in order for us to get to the next spot, you have to make sure that you are maintaining your mean time. Marriage restoration is mean time. And that means you have to make sure that you are following the counsel of God, making sure that your faith is in God and not your spouse or yourself, making sure that you are focused on the promises of God, and making sure that you are allowing God to fix you. Listen, spouses, you cannot do anything about your spouse's behavior, about your spouse's response, about the way your spouse is going to react. You can't do anything about that. You are only responsible for yourself and keeping your spouse lifted up to God and staying in the presence of God. And then the biggest one of them all, well, before that one, you may have some unhealed injuries that occur. Unhealed injuries. Your spouse may have a flashback, may think about something. You may do something that, remind your spouse of what you used to do. You could easily get into go back into old arguments and old ways. This is why you, spouse, the one that's home, the one that's praying, the one that's lifting, the one that's believing God, you have to make sure that you are whole. You have to make sure that you allow God to change you. You have to make sure that you are allowing God to do what he needs to do in you, because your strength in this part of your marriage restoration is going to show it. It's going to show it. It's going to show. This is going to show if you are going to stand, break, fall, whatever. This part of it is going to show the trueness behind your relationship with Christ, where you stand with Christ, and kind of where things are with you in your walk with Christ. This meantime is definitely just that. So sometimes unhealed injuries can be a hindrance to your marriage restoration. And then the enemy himself. Don't think once your spouse come back home, the enemy gonna just be like, oh man, another one bites the dust. Yeah, they done got him. He back home or she back home. They doing life all good and stuff. You think he gonna just stop? You think he gonna just stop and just let you just have life happily ever after? No, he is not. This is why maturity is important. Sacrifice is important. Humility is important. You have to make sure you allow God. And I gotta read that. That's one of the Bible verses I'm going to share with you at the end. It comes from James 1:4. This Bible verse here, Jesus, let me tell you. This one right here is a kicker. All right. So James 1:4, which says, "But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." Perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Listen, spouses, that Bible verse is so true. You got to make sure that you know, because you're going to get tried. Okay. It's going to happen. You're going to be looking like, what? It is going to happen. So I want to prepare you for that. So the next question becomes, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? One, you have to stay in the presence of the Lord. I just keep emphasizing that. Regardless of your opponents, you want to make sure that you are standing in the presence of the Lord. You have to remain sane and change, even if your spouse is not. They need to know that you are no longer the same person. They need to know that whatever injury, whatever thing that took place before they left the marital home, they need to see you as a different person. If you was the one who always had to clap back, snapping, talking back, then you need to do opposite. If you was the one who always had to have the last final word and always had to have the last thing to say, then you need to do opposite. If you was the one who was passive and just chill and just kind of like them, then you need to do opposite. But you need to do it out of you need to do it the way God instructs you to do it. You need to do it the way God will have you to do it. Now, if you was passive and you don't went from being aggressive, that might be a little bit much. But you need to know how to say, listen, right now, this is not working. Me trying to talk to you or us trying to have this kind of conversation. I'm going to walk away and give you some time to do whatever it needs to, whatever needs to happen. Let God kind of, intervene in this area until we can come back and talk this out. Whatever you did before, do opposite, but you have to do it in the counsel of the Lord. You have to do it in the way God would do it. This is one of those moments where it'd be like, what would Jesus do? You have to do it like that, okay? Yes, Jesus sometimes got smart with his people, but it was the timing of God. It was his timing. You have to know the timing, okay? So make sure that you are staying in the presence of the Lord. The second thing you want to do, allow your spouse room for growth. This is where the mercy seat, the mercy in the grace card comes in place, all right? Allow your spouse room. They may have to go, come back. They may need to, be downstairs or be in the, whatever it is they have to do. What you do not want to do is make them remain or want to go back out. Okay. So even if they saying, oh, well, I ain't feeling this today, or, I don't know about this, or I probably messed up, or I probably shouldn't have came back here, or, I don't know why I had to go through this to get here, or this and that. Let them have whatever it is they need to have. This is a hard one. Because it bounces off of your soul, because it's almost like, man, I thought we was going into a forward direction. I thought we was getting, in a better place. I thought we were getting into a happier place. And let me tell you, spouses, it is a process. It is a process. It doesn't just happen. And God is very intentional about the restoration part of your marriage covenant, because he has to judge your motives. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. All right. The next thing is trust God's process and not your own. When I say trust God process, that means it could look one way today and the next day it'd be something totally different. It could look like things were going, one way, and tomorrow is totally different. It's totally different. I want to talk to you now about the honeymoon stage. The honeymoon stage. It's not like what you think I'm going to say, but it's going to be similar. All right. How do I know that my marriage restoration is legit and my spouse won't continue in the same patterns? How will I know? How do I know that, okay, we done been going through these things, they're back home, they're here, it's still a yo-yo up and down. How do I know that this is not just a waste of time? We're not just doing the same thing over and over again. We're not just going in circles. We're not just, doing the same thing. How do I know? And I want to share with you how you know that it's not that. The first way you would know is because God made a promise to you. God made a promise to you. God told you your spouse is coming back home. God told you your marriage will be restored. God told you this is how I'm going to do this. God specifically told you. This is why I want to make known again, you cannot do this in your own strength. You have to get the counsel of the Lord. You have to know that you know God has spoken to you. This is not everybody's stance. This is not everybody's story. But for the ones that it is, you have to know the promise of God and what he promised you. All right, that's first. Second, God has already allowed you to experience your end. And when I say that, there's something that has taken place in your marital covenant when your spouse came home that showed you this is what it's supposed to be. God has given you a picture. God has allowed some things to happen. God has given you some time. God has shown you that picture of what your marriage is supposed to look like, what a restored marriage looks like. And even though it did not stay like that, God has given you that picture and has allowed you that time so you may know what to look forward to and you can know what you will continue to stand for. All right. So God has already allowed you to experience it or see it. And then the third, and this is the biggie. The reason you will know that this is not a up and down thing, that your marriage is legit, that this is gonna work, is gonna be fine, is because God is for your marital covenant. If your motive is more about pleasing God than yourself or your spouse, drop the mic. Because that's where spouses go wrong at. What? What you mean? Wait a minute. What? Yes. God is for your marital covenant, but God is not going to share you with anyone. If you are putting your spouse, if you are putting your marriage, if you are idolizing your marital covenant and making it more about your spouse and your marriage than it is about God, you might as well hang it up. or you're going to short live your victory. It's going to be a very, very short victory. It's going to be that yo-yo. It's going to be that up and down. It's going to be that confusion stage. It's going to be frustrating. You're going to be trying to figure out what it is. Listen, spouses, marriage is not just about sex, hang out with my spouse, he my best friend, she my best friend. We do things together, going out to eat, date nights, movie night, kids, children. This is not the White House and picket fences. That's what people go wrong at. Marriage is so much more than that. And this is why God says in his word, it talks about, how you have to, you should make sure that you're ready for the marital covenant. You should not go into this even when we talk about the vows, when we do the vows, this is not a covenant you want to just go into so easily, so quickly, so fast. You want to know what you're getting yourself into before you go into it, because the devil hates the marital covenant. So he is coming for you. He is coming for you. And if you're not prepared, and if you're not aware, and if you don't have practical tools to use and weapons and know how to maneuver through this, you will lose your marital covenant. You will fail. He is going to send so many things. He's going to attack your insecurities. He's going to attack your injuries. He's going to attack things from your childhood. He's going to attack all types of things that's going to come for your marriage. You will be tried in the marital covenant. And so I think that, and that's why I am so big on making sure people have a understanding about the marital covenant. Yes, the dress and it's beautiful. Yes, the ceremony. I absolutely love weddings. I marry people. I marry couples, and I look forward to that. I'm a wedding officiant, and so I look forward to that happy ever after moment. But it's nothing like having that moment, knowing that we've already been through training. So when the day of evil arrive and come knocking at our door, we are prepared. We are fully equipped to handle what comes our way, because we have been trained. We have been preparing. We have been praying. We have been fasting. We are on the right track. All right. The truth about the marital covenant, everybody marital covenant will not be restored. Everybody marital covenant will not be restored. And it's not because that God is not for your marital covenant. The reason why it won't be restored, because spouses' motives are off, and they get tired of waiting on God. They get tired of God's timing. Listen, when you enter into a marital covenant and you didn't take your premarital counseling, and you're not aware of what to expect, and you're not aware of certain things, you have to go through a whole lot to get to my perfect love story. You have to go through some things to get that picture of my perfect love story. You have to know that this person that you marry is worth that love story, is worth that time, is worth that investment. Marriage is like a business investment. You have to know that this is something that you're prepared and ready to do for a lifetime. And if that that person is worth it, if that person is worth it, And I believe the only time you really know that, God has to give you that desire. That's what it talks about in Psalms 37, that God will give us the desires of our hearts. God has to give us the desire to do this marriage thing, because it's not for everybody. It is not for the weak. This is no shade. I'm not trying to put nobody on the bus, but it is not for the weak. It is not for the one who think you can just come in here and just do whatever. It is not. You will be changed in the marital covenant. So a lot of covenants will not be restored because spouses are not willing to wait. And you have to understand that your marriage is much bigger than you and your spouse. Your marriage is a representation of God and his people. And if you go back and read all the books in the Old Testament of how God came for his people and how his people rebelled and how God was going for his people and the things that they went through and the ups and the downs and the trials and all different types of things that they went through before God sent Jesus, on board. Thank God for Jesus. Thank God for Jesus. Okay. Come on, resurrection. Thank God for Jesus, who died on that cross for us. We went through some things. And so in order for you to get to your love story, and this is one of the things I put on here, I put, because very few get to this part. Very few get to tell their love story. Very few get to tell how we got to this place. When you see those couples who have been married 40 and 50 years and they holding hands and walking on the beach, listen, that didn't just come because they had good sex and they went to the movies together and they had a house with a white picket fence. That came with work. That came with work. The marital covenant is work. And so I want to share some Bible references with you for you to go back and read in your own time and just make sure that you are in alignment with God. Bible verses, James 1 and 4. That's a good one. That's the one I just read. Proverbs 3 and 5. About not trusting in yourself, but trusting in God. John 16 and 33. Your marital trial. You will have that day. That day will come. Hebrews 6, 13 and 20. That's the Bible verse for buoyancy. That's basically just talking about the promises of God, and what God said he's going to do. He's going to do it. Talk about, what he did with Abraham and the promise that he made to Abraham. Psalms 34 and 8. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. You will not taste and see that the Lord is good if you are not willing to stand and do what these things that I just shared with you. You won't taste and see that the Lord is good. You're like, this ain't good, Jesus. Ain't nothing good about this. Okay, this is foolery. Hebrews 11 and 1, faith. You have to have faith. Marriage is a faith walk. This is a faith walk. Hebrews 10, 35 and 37, it talks about the reward, your confidence being in God. And there's a reward for putting your confidence in God and then seeing the promises, being patient till you see the promises. And then my favorite, the one I stood on, come on, Jesus, Psalms 27, 13 and 14, which basically said, I would have given up, lost heart, threw in the key. Look, you can have this. If I did not believe what God had promised and told me, I would have given up. And like I said, God had to give me that desire because I would have given up. And then 14 goes on to say, wait on the Lord and be of good courage. I said, wait on the Lord. Listen, spouses, in order for your marriage to be resurrected, we're not even talking about the love story part. We're just talking about being resurrected. You have to get through the meantime. You have to get through the resurrection part. Once you get through the resurrection part, just like the story of Lazarus, Jesus got Lazarus, had him come up, brought him back to life, and they were still looking at Lazarus like, oh, so you think just because he got you from the dead that we not gonna come for you? You think just because you sit next to Jesus at the dinner table that we not gonna come for you? Like, you got to imagine what was going through these people's heads. This man was in the grave, dead, done, finished, and now you sitting up at the table like, who, and we gonna just leave you alone? No, they are not. And likewise, spouses, the enemy is not going to leave you alone in the marital restoration stage. What he is going to do is try to test you, tempt you, push you, wear you out, get you tired so that you will give up on your marital covenant. But you have to go back to the basics. You have to go back to what God told you. You got to go back to the promises. You got to go back to what God said to you concerning your marital covenant. Listen, I know I've gone over. This is probably the longest video I have did. I wanted to make sure that I get this out to you. Spouses, this is Resurrection Weekend, and God is resurrecting marriages this weekend. I hope this message has been an encouragement to you, a help to you, and I do hope that you have learned something from this. I pray in Jesus' name that your marriage is restored. Blessings.